Okay, so now we have the droid class, our battle droid class, and our messenger droid class. And problem 2 says that we're going to modify what we've started with, and when two droids meet, they should be able to identify themselves to one another. It says, furthermore, to make things equitable, the droid with the lowest power should go first. Your boss has asked you to add a toString method and a compare method to the classes. We're going to extend what we did in problem 1 by adding those two methods where appropriate. So if we look through the class specification, our UML diagram would grow. We're going to include a compare method and a toString method. And the compare method is going to take in, as it will expect as an argument, a droid, and it's going to return an integer. And the toString doesn't expect any arguments, but it will return a string. So if we look at the processing for each, we'll start with the compare method. We want to add these to both the messenger droid and the battle droid. So if we look at the description of the compare method, what we see is that it returns a negative value if the droid object on which this method is called has a lower power value than the droid that it receives as input. 0 if the power levels are the same, and a positive value if the droid on which the method was called has greater power than the droid. Okay, so but it seemingly operates the same for both a battle droid and a messenger droid. So we actually could attach this to the droid class. And because both the battle droid and messenger droid that we created in problem 1 extend droid, that would mean they would come for free. So we can go ahead and add this method. I'm just going to put just copy and paste that description here. So we have it. And what we see is we want this to be, this is something we'll make public, and we're going to return an integer, and it's called compare, and it expects a droid. So everything that we were told about it, except now we have to take a look at the details. So it says it's going to return a negative value if the droid object on which this method is called has a lower power value than the droid, 0 if they're the same, and positive otherwise. And so what I would suggest is that we take the difference between their power levels. So if we say, so we want it to be positive if the droid on which this method is called has a greater value. So essentially we're taking the power level of the droid that we receive as input minus our power level, and that will make it negative if our power level is greater, positive otherwise. And so we can first get each of those if we want. And so our power level we can get by this dot power level, and the power level of the droid that we received, so their or droid power level, is we can get by calling that same detail. We can use the get power level method from attached to that droid. Okay, so now we have both, and what we want to return is the difference, and we want it to be positive if the droid's power level is greater, and so we're going to return droid power level minus our power level, and that's it. So that portion of problem 2 done. And so what we see is that works out that it's negative if our power level is greater, it's 0 if they're the same, and it's positive otherwise. And then we have a toString, and this says it returns a string of the form droid type name, where droid type name is either battle droid or messenger droid, depending on the type of droid, and name is the name of the given droid. Okay, droid type and name. So we either return battle droid and their name, or messenger droid and their name. So for this one, it's different depending on whether or not it's a battle droid or a messenger droid. And for that reason, I would create those within the battle droid and messenger droid themselves. So, so the first, we'll say it's a public, it's returning a string, and it's our toString method. And this is what we'll print, because it's called toString, this is what we'll print if we try to print a battle droid. If we just say system.out.print or print line battle droid, this is what's going to output. So we're going to return a string, and that output's going to look something like the droid type, which in this case I'm updating the battle droid. It will be battle droid, and then the name. And so we can use the this.getName, and that will return the name of this particular droid, and we're going to return that. I could have done that all in one. In fact, it's sort of silly. I could certainly have done that all in one line. I can just return that full string. Okay, so that is a string that we're going to output. Battle droid plus this.getName. And I'm going to just copy this because it's basically the same for a messenger droid. The only difference is that this time we're going to output messenger droid. And that's it. So that's it for problem 2. So problem 3 says we are going to do everything the same as problem 2, and now we're going to add a new class, the sneaky droid class. Sneaky droid is a subclass of messenger droid. So I already have the file ready to go, and just because we know that's the case, it's a subclass of messenger class. That means sneaky droid extends messenger droid. And what we know about that is messenger droid extends droid. So all the properties of droid, all the methods of droid can be found in messenger droid, and all of those additional pieces and details of the messenger droid are found in sneaky droid. Sneaky droid is a subclass of messenger droid. Okay, if we go in here, we see that's the same as problem 2, except we're going to see that get power level always returns 0 for sneaky droids. The droid is sneaky because it never reveals its true power level. Okay, so that's an update where we can see there's no get power level attached to messenger droid, but there was attached to droid. And so there was this public get power level that returns the actual power level. A sneaky droid says, I'm not telling you, so you can try to get my power level, but it's just going to return 0. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So we go to the rest of it. So it's sneaky, and I'll just copy and paste that for myself. So I know why I did that. Always return 0 for sneaky droids. This droid is sneaky because it never reveals its real power. Okay. The other thing that happens is the toString is updated, so it returns sneaky droid and name, and name is the name of the droid. So this is almost the same as what we saw here, the messenger droid, but we're updating that to just do almost the same thing, except call it sneaky droid, and that's it. So, I mean, the only thing left for us to do is to play with this, and so we can create a file, droid fun, and now we can actually use these droids. So after a bit of droid fun of my own, here is a look at some of the things we could do with it. So we'll look at the first few lines and talk about what they do. So I'm creating a few different types of droids, and the first droid is a battle bot. And because battle droid is a subclass of droid, it means that I can actually state the type as droid, but then in that place, put a new battle droid. And as the constructor class requires the name, I pass it the name C3PO. So I have a battle droid C3PO, and on line 9 here, I set the power level to 300. So I've got a BattleBot named BattleBot1. Its power level is set to 300. Its name is set to C3PO. On the next few lines, I create a new battle droid called BattleBot2, and it has a name BBot, and its power level is set to 200. Then in the next few lines, I create a messenger droid called Posty and set its power level to 100. And then finally create a sneaky droid. Its name is Shh, and its power level is set to 999. Though it won't tell you what its power level is. It will always pretend that its power level is set to 0, as we know. So on the next lines, I ask them to meet up. So we see what happens when BattleBot 1 meets BattleBot 2. The two battle droids meet. When a battle droid meets a messenger droid. When another battle droid meets a sneaky droid. And finally, when a messenger droid meets a sneaky droid. And what this meetup does, it's just a static method that I created. And what it does is it prints, we have a droid meetup. It gives us the droid details, so droid 1 and droid 2. And we see it also tries to get the power level. Now remember, a sneaky droid does not share its power level, so it will tell us it has power level 0, even though that's not the case. And then we do a comparison. So we call the compare method. Droid 1 compares itself to droid 2, and then they meet. And so we use the meet method, and after meeting, we get the power levels back. Okay, so let's just run this and we'll see what that looks like. So we'll have a bit of droid fun and we'll see what happens. So the first thing we see is we have a droid meetup, and battle droid C3PO meets battle droid BBot, which starts with power level 300 and 200 respectively. It does the comparison. So droid 1, the battle droid C3PO, compares itself to droid 2. So after the meetup, the two battle droids both drop by 10, which works as expected. Then we see we've got a battle droid at 190 meeting up with a battle messenger droid at 100, and that difference is minus 90. So the messenger droid is minus 90 power compared to the battle droid. And after meeting, they both drop by 10. Okay, so that works out as expected. Then we have a droid meet up C3PO at 290 against a sneaky droid, which we know actually has power level 999, but it doesn't tell us what its power level is. It never does. But we see when it tries to do that comparison, it lists its power level at or the difference as negative 290. That's not really true, but that's how it plays out. Finally, we see a meetup between the messenger droid and the sneaky droid. And again, the sneaky droid is lying to us, and it does that comparison. And because it keeps getting that power level of 0, even though that's not where we're at, we see that. So we could make changes and play with it and get the real power level just for fun if we wanted to kind of see how that all works. So that's all fun and games, and our droids have met. We can certainly do more with this, but for now, I'll leave you to it. Happy coding!